Thank you so much for joining today's episode of Beyond the Buy Box. I'm super, super pumped to welcome our guest for today, Destaney Wishon, who's the CEO of BTR Media, a performance marketing agency. I'm just so excited to chat today. Our platform here is really intended to help bring together groups and stakeholders of all places to help brands maintain the integrity of all of that hard work that they're putting into it. And I know that you've worked with hundreds of brands across, your career experiences, particularly with BTR Media and, helping brands really find the intersection of investments, where they're showing up, how they're showing up, building trust with consumers at the same time navigating a ton of companies. So excited to have you here today, Destiny, as a guest. And I'd love to just dive right in.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think the world that we live in is incredibly complex, and e-commerce and AI is only acting as a catalyst for the rate at which things change. So, any space that you can bring together people and communities to help educate just a little bit further, I think is a really, really good path forward.
Amazing. Along the lines of, educating through complexity, I've come from the brand side for several years and, investing in a variety of vehicles online through digital, platforms, but especially in marketplaces, e-com with omni-channel retailers, particularly in the retail media space where costs seem to be exploding. And it makes it very, very challenging for brands to make choices, prioritize, and at the end of the day, trying to build a level of equity and presence, differentiation at the same time, trying to protect all of that, but then also commercially there's jobs to be done. And so I would love to hear just your perspective on where is the complexity through your lens today, and what are some of the things that you're navigating and leading forward with brands that you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Costs are increasing, and it's not just the cost, it's also the complexity. I wake up and scroll LinkedIn, and there's a new announcements. I mean, 2 hours ago, the AWS and OpenAI announcement was made. Walmart announced over the weekend that they're now launching a new creator connections console. And it's causing a lot of noise in this space. And I think brands are dealing with quite a bit of FOMO. One of the things that we've seen is, do I start a TikTok shop? Do I focus on Amazon DSP? Do I focus on Walmart? Do I focus on influencers? Like, you see one brand go viral for something that they did, and brands want to hop on that bandwagon and replicate that success as quickly as possible. And that's a dangerous space to be in, because when you try to do everything, you do nothing well. And I think that's probably the biggest things I've been cautioning brands too. When you're looking at all of the new and exciting rollouts and updates, you have to keep in mind your long-term vision. If you try to hop on something quickly because it's trending, but it doesn't align with your long-term vision, that's just going to add additional complexity that I think is going to dilute your quality. But also, you have to really learn enough about a platform to feel confident moving forward. And I mention that because I think traditional org structures are very highly focused on SOP'd environments with a lot of bureaucracy, right? We've seen it across big CPG.
Sure.
There's a reason why Elf Cosmetics and Dude Wipes and all these fun disruptor brands are growing like crazy. And I think it's because they got their team culture right in a e-commerce environment that moves as quickly as it does. You have to hire passionate people that are constantly pushing the business forward and becoming as educated as possible about all of these different arenas.
Absolutely. And
That was a lot.
especially, I know, and, I'm also thinking about the prioritization factor, which can be really tricky and challenging, especially when you see a lot of momentum down a path that you didn't anticipate or necessarily put into your see how it could fit in your vision. I love the idea though of kind of sticking to for the longevity of what you're building. Following that same thread, what can get in the way? I think about, in the space that I'm in now, there are a ton of other resellers that act on behalf of the brand that aren't bidding on the same terms. They're
Yep.
trying to do placements in the same places that the brand is. Can represent the brand with their own content and creative. And how does that play a role in choices and priorities that you may navigate and steer a brand to factor that sort of complexity into
Yeah.
the mix?
Well, I think that's the perfect example of putting your short term opportunities ahead of your long term goals. A lot of people will work with multiple resellers or have a messy distribution system, not realizing the impact it has on every other area of their business. It's not just a lost buy box. It drives so much complexity with your DSP ads. It drives so much complexity with your cash flow. But in the early stages, it seems like a win.
Mhm.
You're fulfilling POs, and someone's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So it's easy to jump on that opportunity when you don't realize long term it does not align with your vision. And I think that's probably that decision making arc that I mentioned of it's easy to get caught up in shiny object syndrome, but you have to go back to what are my long term goals. Another example is, there's a very popular CPG brand in the space that is doing incredible numbers on TikTok Shop. They're posting a ton of content, making it look like it's too good to be true. So I have brands sending me messages every day of how do we replicate this? How do we replicate this? Come to find out, they have over a 20-person team running their affiliate marketing department. And I'm like, it's not as easy as it looks. So I think that's
Yeah.
that balancing act of like, what can you support right now that helps, maybe achieve some of those short term goals and objectives, but also without losing sight of that long term vision of losing your brand equity.
Absolutely. And that's a really interesting example too. Never as easy as it may be.
Yeah, I can go post on LinkedIn all day long. I promise you, it took so much time to build to that point.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For our community members here, what are some like personal lessons that you've learned just throughout your career and
Yeah.
the seat that you're sitting in now that is really the juggling act as you're
Yep.
talking about like making the priorities, making choices long term, short term, but maybe others that are really tied to that healthy
Yeah.
brand building and the realities of marketplaces. If
Yeah.
you had to give, here are the top couple of things that you've learned that's really kind of still stick tried and true with you today.
Yeah, number one, I would say is fail fast. There's a really big opportunity to jump on some of these opportunities and get, first mover advantage. But you also have to read the writing on the wall and pull out just as quickly as maybe you jumped in. I think that's something incredibly important. Oftentimes, with working with brands, when there's a new rollout across Amazon or Walmart, we'll pitch it to brands and it'll take 6 months to get approved. And I'm like, this is the lowest risk thing that we could do. And you have to move at the speed of culture in this industry that we're in. So that's kind of the first one is to really prioritize failing fast, making mistakes, but being accountable to those mistakes. The second one I would say is, we're seeing a younger generation that is inundated by influencers and algorithms and XYZ. And I think that's pushing a lot of people towards this more authentic environment. People value authenticity. So in a world where we have AI and you can reproduce a video or a ad or a product detail page asset in under 10 minutes, make sure you're staying close to your core values and being incredibly authentic. I mean, we're leaning into AI with a lot of our brands,
Mhm.
but if we lean in too far, we're going to see a loss in, our brand voice and the quality of the content. And I think there's a kind of a fine line to walk there. The third thing I would say is to always be learning. I don't think any older generation quite understands how complex the space we're working in is and how much it is to learn. It's a whole new language. I remember my first agency day, I heard the words, FBM, FBA, buy box, CPC, DSP, and I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to do this. Like all of the
Yeah.
acronyms, I was like, absolutely never gonna be able to do this. But you can keep learning. You can find trusted voices like yourself in this space. And really, you have to continue a relationship with those people in order to stay cutting edge.
And I also think pacing ourselves. The one thing I love about
Yeah.
staying in this space is that it never gets dull. And
Never.
there's always things to learn. And it is, I love inherently the lesson that you first shared about knowing what taking learnings, failing fast, and even at times like needing to pivot. If you were planning a particular path in a lane and it's not going to work, the beautiful thing about the digital arena is allowing yourself the grace to just pivot.
Yes.
So I think that's such a smart learning and words of advice here. Maybe on the
And
same thread of advice, what's one practical change that you wish every brand would make to strengthen a consumer experience that you see just time and time again?
that's a difficult one. There's a laundry list of things that are coming top of mind just with the innovation that we're seeing with AI, and I think some of the opportunities with creative. I think I'll lean into that connection aspect. I think that there historically was a concern that when you hop on marketplace, your brands can be a little bit diluted. You can't tell your brand story. We see the return of Nike and all of these different areas of like, oh, e-commerce isn't going anywhere. Lean into those opportunities that may seem like a heavy lift, but can really drive and improve customer experience.
Mm.
Amazon's had a lot of innovation when it comes to building out your store and creating, a premium product detail page. They're little things that can be really expensive, but it makes a difference. When you're staring at a digital shelf with, over 50 products, your nature is to go down to reviews and price before you make a click, right? And once you make that click, that is your only opportunity to capture someone's attention. And we are overstimulated all the time in the world that we live in. All of your customers are overstimulated. So anything you can do to actually capture their attention, it's going to make a big difference. Driving traffic's the easy piece. The marketplaces are doing it for you as a brand. Capturing the attention and driving that conversion, I think, is really on the brands. It's the brand's job to do and to do it incredibly well.
I love that a lot, and you're right that, you know, I've never heard anyone articulate it in that way, and driving traffic is the easy piece
Yeah.
that typically in a lot of, like, mental models that it's like, "Oh, just getting folks there," but you're so
Yeah.
right that once they're there, how do you draw more time
Yeah.
where they want to engage with the brand and not just, "Boom, okay, click to buy," and we're on our way from a commercial, hit the
Absolutely.
sale, on to the next. So, I think it's a really important element for brands not to lose sight of, especially when you've done the work to hold on to the buy box, because
Yes.
that also
Yes.
is very hard to do when you have a lot of competitive sets out there that may, again, be working on your behalf.
Yeah. The last thing you wanna do is lose them due to something like poor bullet points or a terrible third image. Like, it's the simplest thing you can do, but I just see a lot of brands are saying, "Hey, it's not worth the price." Everyone wants to focus on the traffic side. That's the exciting one. They're like, "Oh, I had 1,000,000 people view my product detail page in the last month." No one wants to focus on, like you said, the non as shiny things of, your distribution, your buy box, but also your main images. You can no longer get by with just syndicating your images from your D2C site or Walmart into every other platform. We're seeing that every platform has a very unique opportunity, whether it's in the rollouts that they have and they're giving you access to, but also the customers are very different. Brands forget about that.
Sure, totally. I think that's so present in things which I love that, any community member that's listening and watching right now can take action today. When you think out into the future, based on everything that you're experiencing, everything that you're learning, things that you're seeing with brands that you partner with, and knowing where the kind of where you would predict this digital commerce
Yeah.
done right path is headed, what do you feel like it really looks like to win beyond that buy box? I mean, you were just alluding to some of the things like the fundamental elements
Yeah.
and how important and critical it is to not just drive traffic, but not lose sight of
Yeah.
it. Those are prime opportunities to
Yeah.
build trust and to build equity for brands. Maybe if you could leave us with any other kind of those around the fringes
Yeah.
based on where you see this industry heading.
Absolutely. I'll start with the lift to produce commercial grade creative is being removed. AI is allowing small brands to create incredible assets that are now comparable to the very large budgets of large CPG. So when you remove that cost barrier and you have the opportunity to list on a marketplace, be put on the same shelf as XYZ brands that used to take forever to, sell into a store, your opportunity and competitive advantage is in speed. Absolutely. Like big CPG has not embraced speed just yet. For all those small to mid-sized brands, lean into AI to give you the creative assets that are comparable to the large brands and move quick. Test, test, test. I mean, small things like, the Rufus rollout or the Sparky rollout, they're pointing towards the future of commerce, which is no longer just keyword based, SEO based. It's contextual.
Mhm.
And that's important for brands to understand because you can no longer rely on a customer typing in protein and just seeing your protein compared to everyone else. Customers are going and they're typing into their personal AI agent that knows them better than anyone else. If you wait for a customer to type into AI, what protein do I need? You've already lost the battle. The brands that are winning are the ones that can capture attention. And you have to do that through incredible creative assets and authenticity. Dude Wipes is such a great example. When they couldn't afford, the traditional national media campaigns or XYZ, they were scrappy. They were putting billboards up through Bentonville, Arkansas. They were, hanging signs on buildings next to large events. They captured demand. And what that does is it allows customers to go to their AI agent and no longer ask, what butt wipes do I need? They say, find me dude wipes. And I think that's incredibly important as we see this AI forward world where all of our devices know more about us than they ever should, but it's taking out that bottom of the funnel need to win on the keyword level.
I feel like I'm gonna need to have to bring you back just for a boot camp. This topic alone is, the AI generated sort of shopping assistance, and because it's so personal, kind of gone are the days of how do you search? There's no sort of formulaic approach or even how to anticipate how others are gonna do it. But
Yeah,
I do think
absolutely.
it's definitely starts with getting engaged and
Yeah.
trying, and factoring before it's too late. And I love
Yes.
the Dude Wipes example because I think scrappy and moving fast, regardless of the kind of configuration, that the
Yeah.
size of organization that you're at, I've always found in large organizations, there's always like the one or two trailblazers. I say find those
Absolutely.
folks and keep on trying, because I think
Absolutely.
definitely what creates winners and winning experiences.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for the conversation today and for sharing your perspective, your learnings, and your advice with the community here at Beyond the Buy Box.
Of course. Thank you so much. It's what you're doing and what we see in the industry. It's difficult to produce content on because every brand struggle is incredibly different. So you can either go high level and hope they grasp the context to move forward, or you get really hands-on keyboard and just help you're serving the audience. So what you're doing is not easy, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity to at least hop on the podcast and assist.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much, Destiny.
Thank you.